Air France changed my flight without asking me. Grr. But I think I might have made it into something better. Hi, everybody. Dugras here with Dugras Reports. So yes, this summer in July, my family of four will be flying from America across the pond, ending up in the United Kingdom, spending some time there, a short intra-Europe flight heading over to Sweden, and then back to America. And I did a previous video, I'll put a link up in the corner, with all the details of how I did the points and made all the arrangements on that. And then I find out a couple weeks ago that Air France has canceled one of the flights and changed another one of the flights. So I had to deal with that. But being someone who reads blogs, I follow Frequent Miler, those kind of things, I did my best to turn that into something that was actually a net positive. So let's take a look at the details here. Here's the original flight plan mapped out. Minneapolis to London, that's a one-way ticket. I'll briefly go over how I paid for it just so you have a base of comparison. There were some points moved from Capital One, some points moved from Amex. It was a total of 227,000 points, which became 280,000 points because when I did this last year before the end of September, there was a transfer bonus at the time. Pretty sure it was September. Don't quote me on the exact date. And then to return back to America, many of you may know, and if not, that's okay. The United Kingdom has this really weird tax where if you are on a flight departing the United Kingdom, you get walloped with like $1,000 in taxes and fees per person in business class flying back to North America. So what a lot of people will do is they'll take a intra-Europe flight to somewhere else and depart from that other country. So that's what I did. Where is Göteborg, Sweden? And I think it's pronounced Göteborg, but if I'm wrong, I apologize. If you take a look at this map here on the left, you'll see Stockholm on the right, kind of in the middle of the long, skinny country. Göteborg is the second largest city in Sweden, and they have an airport, so that's just by chance. I found a really good deal out of there by using point.me. You'll see a little map here. We'll be flying in the middle of our trip from the London area over to Gothenburg, Göteborg, however you want to pronounce it. So, returning Göteborg to Minneapolis. This was booked through Virgin Atlantic onto Air France. It was 27,000 Amex points, which came up to that many per person. And because of the transfer bonus, it was worth 351,000 with 1,000 left over. So 350,000 points needed, but only had to use 270,000. So the totals for the round trip were $124,250 points, 124,250 points per person. That was 4 people. Finding 4 business class flights on the same plane can be a little bit of a miracle sometimes. Taxes and fees totaled $314 and change per person. Now, the old flight departing was as follows. We were going to go from Minneapolis to Paris, have a layover there, flying on an Air France Boeing 777-200. And the brief layover in Charles de Gaulle Airport there in Paris, and a hop over to London Heathrow on an Air France Airbus A320. That last flight's only like an hour or two, so the fanciest of the airplane is not as important there. Then I found out it was delayed by 2 days. So I got this email. It said, your flight departing Minneapolis on Thursday, July 13th has been changed, and we've rebooked you into a new flight. Well, the flight they rebooked me into was 2 days later on July 15th. Now, my family has never flown transatlantic before, and I'll be honest, I haven't either. The furthest I've ever traveled from Iowa is in Canada when I was a kid. So this is, I wouldn't say a once-in-a-lifetime trip, but it's going to be a big deal for us. So I don't really like the thought of 2 whole days being chopped off of our trip. So that led to me needing to get on the phone with customer service and Air France and see what we could do to work that out. And actually, we made a perfectly amicable arrangement. So the new flights are as follows. We will leave Minneapolis and have our layover in Amsterdam on KLM. You may know Air France, KLM, which is the Royal Dutch airline, are part of the same rewards program called Flying Blue. So you can book Air France through KLM, KLM through Air France. They're partners. That's really easy to do. This one's going to be on a Boeing 787-900 Dreamliner, which I have no experience in either of these, but just reading lots of blogs and things, I think that's an upgrade. A Dreamliner is fancier than a 777. And after our layover, we will take a ERJ 190 called a City Hopper plane from Amsterdam over to London. That's like a 1-hour flight on the button. You will notice it's not London Heathrow, though. It's not LHR, it's LCY. That's the London City Airport. So we'll talk about that change. Here are the airports around London that have commercial airliner flights. And you'll see Heathrow on the left there, kind of the west edge of the greater London area in the orange. 16 miles from the center of the city. London City is closer to the middle of the city, although it's on the east, 11 miles from the center of the city. Now, the driving distance, it says, is only a minute different. We haven't settled on a hotel yet, but for the ones that are within the range where we can use points and get it all on points, I think we'd be a little east of the city center. So I think this is actually a positive change for us. Do you have any experience with the different airports in London? Let me know if you think London City is a nice airport. It's kind of for businessmen is the impression I get because it's close to the city, so maybe it doesn't have quite as many tourist amenities, but we're going to be hopping on the London Underground, the subway anyway, and it's a slightly shorter trip. So that's theoretically an upgrade. Before I go any further on this particular YouTube channel, we talk about finding epic value, including, but not limited to, credit card rewards for the average American. Does that sound interesting to you? If it does, please click the thumbs up button and please subscribe to the channel. Let's keep going. Then, a couple days later, I get another email that my return flight had also been changed, but this one had no call required. Got an email telling me my flight from Paris back to USA had been delayed, and like 2 days later, a second email, the entire flight had been canceled. So I don't know if maybe Air France is doing away with that route or what. Because I booked through Virgin Atlantic, I logged into my wife's online account with Virgin Atlantic. We used her Amex points to Virgin Atlantic to make the coming home flight. And there was just a little button that said, if you agree with this new itinerary, all you got to do is click I agree. And I did, and it acknowledged the schedule change, and everything was just fine. So what was that new booking that I agreed to? Well, first, just a quick review of the old flight on the way home. Gothenburg to Paris, an intra-European flight, only about 2 hours on an Air France ERJ 190, operated by HOP, which I guess is a subsidiary. You can see in the picture there. And then from Paris on to Minneapolis on an Air France Boeing 777, the same as the flight across the pond on the way here, or the way to Europe, I mean. New, or what the suggested change was, the exact same flight to get from Gothenburg, Sweden to Paris. And then I wrote unchanged, but 6 hour, 45-minute layover. The layover was like almost 5 hours. Now it's 6:45. So if you know of any fun things to do in the Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris for almost 7 hours, please let me know. We will have a business class flight, so we should have business class lounge, but maybe there's other things. The new flight, Paris to Minneapolis, was rescheduled on Delta on an Airbus A330-300 in Delta 1. So Flying Blue, which is KLM and Air France, are part of the same airline alliance as Delta. So apparently they found 4 business class seats and were able to put me there. What is Delta One? Well, Delta One is their, I guess, top-end business product. And I've never flown either Air France, KLM, or Delta, so I don't have a base of comparison. But again, my basic reading is that Delta One is considered one of the better first classes. Now, I got this picture just from a screenshot on the Delta website. Is this what it'll look like? I don't know. I get the impression, depending whether you get an older plane, newer plane, whether it's an Airbus or a Boeing, it can vary. Some have like angular, some have the kind of squared off like this, some have closing doors, some don't. But if you have a way of knowing, put a comment down below. On the whole, Delta One gets pretty good reviews, I guess. So that's definitely an upgrade. The original cash equivalent worked out like this: $6,000 some per person on the way to London, $3,700 on the way from Gothenburg back to Minneapolis, $2,281. The new information we have, not new, I need to talk about the old cents per point, how we calculate that. I won't go into great detail here. The price, take out the taxes and fees, subtotal, divide by the number of points spent. I was getting 4.6 cents per point before these changes. New, $12,315 per person. On your way to London, $7,500 per person. I don't know. It's because maybe it's because I end up in that London City airport. Maybe KLM's way more expensive. I'm not sure. And on the way back home, that went up a fair amount too, $9,700. Over $12,000 per person is what the cash equivalent would be. So how does that work out in cents per point? Well, we have the total cost, we subtract out the taxes and fees, we have the net cost, divide it by the number of points per person, and drum roll please, that comes out to 9.6 cents per point. Pretty awesome, and I'm pretty excited about that. Although I will give kind of my standard disclaimer. It seems like when you're talking about these business class flights over the ocean in business class or better, there comes a point where the cents per point is kind of stupid and almost useless. I mean, I hear people talk about, I got 12 cents per point, I got 15 cents per point. None of us would have paid for these prices anyway, or at least most of us. Like, would I have paid $12,000 per person, $48,000 total to send my family on a European vacation? No, it would bankrupt me for the next 5 years. So it's almost silly to do the cents per point, but it's still really fun. Let me rephrase that. It's silly to use cents per point as an indicator of the actual value you're getting. I'm not going to start valuing Amex points at 9.6 per point as any type of reasonable redemption value. So is it hypothetically possible? Yes. Is it fun? Yeah, it's really fun. Is it a helpful tool for calculating the cash equivalent? Not really. That's where I land, and I'd love to hear your comments. Put them down below. Tell me all about it. May your spending be frugal, and may your points be plenteous. Thanks for watching.